Yo!
Let's go. But, here we go now. Batman scoop on the mic. Mix in the mix on the wheels of steel. This is what I was fucking born to do. Let's go.
To see you, Lieutenant Rue, Akla Barker, High Security, Hexavalent, Tim, Daddy Lampy. Oh, no chat. No chat, no chat, no chat. No, you guys are tiny. You guys are so small, you little pipsqueaks. Look at you. I'm gonna pinch your cheeks. You're little teeny tiny. Oh no, wait, that's... Where's the one on the other side? Are you guys always over here? Am I losing it? Are you guys always on this side? I feel like you guys are on the other side usually. I gotta check. Let's check right now. This is gonna bother me. We'll go to a big A clip. We'll go to a big A clip, bro. this last clip. Oh, it's left. It is left side. Wow, I'm losing it. I'm losing it. It's the crayons one. That's a classic. Hello, Atlas 481. Hello, Lavi Liam. Hello, Tearful 105 Grape. Other Ninja Finavel. Two. Pleasure to see you all. Pleasure to see you all. We are back and live and direct, live on time, 7:30 p.m. On the dot. So much to talk about today. I could spend the whole time yelling at YouTube commenters. I could answer questions from chat. But one thing I know for a fact that we're going to do today is watch part 2 of the Nortel video, because I very much enjoyed part 1. Really was right up my alley. It's like the kind of crack that you can put right in my veins. So, that's what we'll do for sure today. I just got back from a little bit of basketball. This one was by myself. I went to a local park and practiced. And it was funny. This is going to sound odd. But it made me want to be a dad. Made me want to be a dad. Because I was practicing ball. And there was this little kid. He's like fucking 11 years old. And he was, he's short, right? And he kept shooting the ball, missing, different hoop, missing. And then he finally gets it, and then it gets stuck. It gets in the net, and it gets stuck, and he can't reach it. He can't knock it out. And so he's like looking all around, and then he comes and asks me for help. Did you play? And obviously I told him, no, I'm busy. But like, imagine if it was my kid, Then I would have helped him. I told him I was busy grinding. Actually, what I did was I charged him a small fee. I said, hey, bud, yeah, I'm happy to help. I'm famous, though, so it'll cost you just a little bit of a appearance fee. He scrounged the money together. I think he was actually literally breaking a piggy bank. He handed it to me. And then the second he took it, I looked away and didn't look back at him. I took the money, I pocketed it, and then whenever he would talk, I would just look straight up. Pretend like I couldn't hear him. That's called money moves. Money moves, baby. Money moves. Didn't even have to fucking get the ball down. Taught him a real fucking lesson about business. No contract, no problem. Take away your kids' basketball. No, anyway, I just helped them. The honest true story is that I helped them get it down, and then not 5 minutes later, it was stuck again. I think the net was bad. It was like a missing part of it because it kept getting stuck, and it happened. I'm not kidding, at least 2 more times. And by the 4th one, I actually was a little annoyed. Like the first 3, it was the cutest thing I've ever seen. This poor kid can't reach it. He asked me to help. I get it down. By the 4th one, I was like, all right, okay, but I don't know. I got an hour out here. You didn't offer to switch sides? Honestly, I didn't offer to switch sides because my side was in the shade. I did not want to switch hoops, bro. If I was in the sun, I would have fucking melted. How's that 3-4% coming on? It's coming along. It's coming along. I'm more of a mid-range guy, mid-range shooter. You know? They call me the DeMar DeRozan of local LA parks with groups of mostly gamers who don't play basketball. That's what they call me. They're very specific, yeah. Succinct title. Do you sell hats or there's other clothes? Right now I only sell hats, bro. I'm a hat salesman. It's my main job. Simple life, really. The quiet life of a hat salesman. The stitching. You put the stitching in there. You craft the fabric. You mold it to the contours of the skull. It ain't much, but it's honest labor. And there's nothing more honest than taking a notoriously fraudulent company's logo, stealing it, and selling it as your own merch. Bro definitely makes the hats in sweatshops. Yeah, but I motivate the sweatshop workers by hand. You know what I'm saying? So for really, it's like it's a lot of manual labor. Yo, Big A, I've been given an offer for a D1 swim team walk-on spot, but college is super expensive. Do I risk going and try for a future scholarship or nah? Bro, I don't know enough about. Do you guys always give me like one detail of your life and you're like, can you figure out the rest? I don't know your financial situation. I don't know what you'd major in. I don't know how good you are. You got offered for. Does that mean how motivated you are to get better at swimming and get a scholarship? I have no idea, bro. I could not tell you the answer to this question. I think you are going to know your situation better. Just follow your heart. Hey, V Squishy 5. Thank you for the 2 months. Loyal YouTube frog. Much appreciated. Good to have you here. Two banger videos today. If you're interested in watching a little YouTube, I think the Squeaks video, unironically, very funny. And I think a good job to the editor as well. Zinjo, who I think created a banger intro. Let's watch it together. Let's watch the very beginning. Watch the first. We're going to teach Squeaks how to be the ultimate hitman.
I can just do this.
It doesn't full screen. It doesn't full screen. Why, what is with fucking broken ass YouTube? Oh, there it is. Okay.
I am out of bullets.
It's very challenging. And Squeaks, you know, he's already had his own experiences. It's a difficult task, but I think I can do it.
Okay, thanks.
Dude! I have to put on my Diana outfit. All right. I can, no, I'm not a McDonald's worker. And also, that's not something to be ashamed of. All right, no spoil. You get the idea. It's fun. It's a fun time. It's the whole hour, I think, he fucking nailed it. The best banters. It was burgers, double patty, no mustard. I don't know the burgers thing. Burgers, double patty, lettuce, and fucking pickles. No, you would have a lettuce bun. It's burgers, double patty with a crispy, delicious lettuce bun. I work for a large healthcare company, and today our CFO announced that he wants us to become a tech company and not a healthcare company. But hours later, we had mass layoffs, so we might already be a tech company. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. That's fucking classic CEO behavior. Classic, dude. What a way to spin. That's such a classic spin. Hey, we've mismanaged things really badly. We are heading into a really bad quarter. We have to lay off a ton of people. It's not because of our mismanagement. It's because we're pivoting to become more lean tech company. Yo, Big A, I just woke up for you on a Saturday morning. It's 4:40 a.m. How much longer can I sleep? I have no idea, bro. Go take a nap. You might just show up in the middle of it. Atrioc, could you tell a full-time worker that they're could you tell a full-time worker that they're working 2 part-time jobs and pay them less? Okay, I see what you're saying. You're saying, like, let's say you hire someone to work the register and restock the shelves. Could you split that into 2 jobs, register guy and shelf restocker, both of which are part-time, keep them both under 40 hours, and be able to pay minimum wage, no benefits twice? Honestly, I don't think so. I mean, I'm not saying there's not somebody pulling that loophole, but I do think the Labor Bureau would have a problem with that. I think that would be tough to actually pull off. But I like your thinking. That outside of the box thinking, you got upper management written all over you. But the thing is, they would just hire, like, what they can do is just hire 2 people. And they do that. Why do they need you to do both? Do you know what I'm saying? Why wouldn't they just hire 2 people and then pit them against each other? LOL, you said doo-doo. Checkmated again by the intellect of my chat. Checkmated again. In this battle of wits, I am always the fucking pauper, never the prince, you know? You guys have that elite training. Atrioc. My coworker works 2 different locations at the same store and they count as different jobs. Well, there you go. Someone's getting it off. Someone's pulling it off. Are there any actually good business econ books you recommend? Yeah, I would recommend the Bible, as per usual. I feel like that gives you the best understanding of business because through Christ, our profits can grow, is like the first thing you should know. I made this joke yesterday. I make this joke every time someone asks me for book recommendation because I don't want to have a boring answer every time. I'd rather just talk about Christ. Hey, Big A, by the way, every time I say it, I become more truly religious. Every time I make the joke, I literally read the Bible a little bit, and I'll become truly an actual prophet. Big A, how do you feel about your initial GARM suit coverage now that GARM was gone? Seems there was depth some collusion going on there. Bro, I think you're a nice guy, so I'm not going to call you an idiot. But I want you to think of, let's just use Occam's razor here, okay? Let's just cut down to the bone. If you guys don't know, Elon Musk sued a company called GARM. Forget the exact acronym for it. It's like the group of advertiser relationship. What is GARM? Well, it's the fucking, anyway, it's the Global Alliance for Responsible Media. And it's a group of advertisers. It's a small nonprofit that has advertisers as members that works to make sure that where they place their advertisements doesn't have anti-Semitism and fucking neo-Nazis or whatever next to their ads. That's what it does. That's what it exists to do. All right. Elon Musk sued it because his company X isn't making any fucking money. And he's like, I want Unilever, I want Mars, I want CVS, I want fucking Procter & Gamble. I want these big American family companies to advertise on X. And maybe if I sue them through GARM, I can get them back. GARM, understandably, is a relatively small nonprofit. It is staffed by like fucking 4 people. They just shut down. They're not going to get into a fucking legal battle with the world's richest man. They just shut down. And now everybody who has zero brain cells in their fucking head is sitting on Twitter going, wow, big win for Elon. He did it. But all that does is, it doesn't mean they're coming back to advertise. It doesn't mean they're going to come back. Like, what does it do? It doesn't, you know what I'm saying? It doesn't get Unilever because, listen, imagine you're in Unilever's shoes. You're one of the biggest corporations on earth, okay? You're thinking of where you're going to spend your advertising dollars. If you go to Twitter, or X, I'm sorry, now, after they sued you twice, he said, fuck you on stage. Imagine spending $100 million with X, and then next quarter, you're like, that didn't work so much. Let's go 50 million. He is liable. He's the kind of person that could call you out. The best thing to do is ignore him. The brand risk of even going near him is now so high. You can't even try spending on Twitter because if you do and then ever cut it later, he'll sue you or he'll make it a culture war thing. You can't go near him. You have to just pretend. It's created such a toxic environment to putting your money on X. Second thing, I'm speaking as an actual advertiser who has spent money on this while at NVIDIA. I've managed budgets that are spent on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, whatever. I've managed those things. I can promise you from the bottom of my soul, and you can look this up, you can look up anyone. Twitter has been, even before Elon Musk took over, always been the worst place to spend money. It has always had the lowest click-through, lowest follow-through, worst targeting. It's always been the worst. People just don't leave it. They don't click out of it. And you can't like, again, this is not necessarily a good thing, but if you spend money on Facebook, you can target so precisely. I can get fucking lonely 22-year-olds interested in gaming who have recently expressed interest in upgrading to a new GPU or whatever, dude. You can target so specifically. But if you are on Twitter, you got nothing. They have no ad product. It's always been bad. So I just think about it like this. People are acting like fucking Unilever or fucking Nestle. People act like Nestle is taking a moral high ground on free speech and is like trying to crack down on Elon Musk morally. No! Nestle is not a moral company and they don't give a shit. Nestle just wants to make money. They can't make money on X. It's not, think about it like this. Many people that I know who worked in marketing and social media actually hated the morals of Zuckerberg at the time much more. But they use Facebook anyway. They use Instagram anyway because it works. Do you know what I'm saying? Companies aren't really moral when you boil it down to it. At the end of the day, all that matters is the result and the money they make. And many times, even though they probably wouldn't want to use Facebook, they didn't personally use Facebook, they would have to spend money there because it works. The reason people aren't using X, they could fucking hate Elon, they would still use it if it worked. It doesn't work. That's what I'm telling you. If they fix the ad product, people will come back. If it works, someone will try it. But right now, you try to buy an ad on X, it's going to put it next to fucking the worst other ads in the world, some of which are like porn. It's going to be next to the worst posts in the world. No one will click it anyway, and you can't target the right people. You're going to get bots. You're going to get... So that is the honest answer. I'm just telling you, when I saw those responses, I was so annoyed because Garm shutting down means nothing. It doesn't mean anything. But people are taking it like he had some fucking big win. It doesn't make him any money. Anyway, I went into a rant there. I'm sorry. I went into a rant. Let's ask something nicer. I thought it was worse to advertise on Reddit than Twitter. Am I wrong? My understanding is Twitter is the worst, but I never advertised on Reddit. But from, I read Ad Age, I read fucking the marketing subreddit. They all say Twitter is like they've tried spending on. Like there was a case study of a guy who had this for an Elon video. I wonder if I can find it. I'll just tell you the long and short of it. It was a guy who liked Elon's politics. He had a small business. He liked Elon's politics, and he spent, I don't know, $600,000 on Twitter, and he got no sales. His sales went up maybe like, I don't know, 4,180. Some absolutely fucking astronomically small number. Like actually was fucking it. Think about it. I mean, if you use the platform, do you really click the ads? Are you really buying things? I have seen ads occasionally on Instagram that have made me want to click through and buy. I have seen ads on TikTok occasionally. I have never, ever on X, never on Twitter. They're the worst. Big Unk. Don't call me Big Unk. Call me Big A. Call me Atrioc. You can say Streamer Man. You can say whatever. Don't say Big Unk. Thoughts on Arnold Palmer? Is that shit really busting for real, or is that liberal propaganda? Arnold Palmer like mixing iced tea and lemonade? That shit's busting for real. Everyone knows that. What a stupid question. Arnold Palmers are delicious. Arnie Palmies? Hey, Truck. Today I got skipped into the best business university in Portugal. Thanks for making me understand the interesting world of economy. PogChamp. Congrats, dude. Enjoy. Sounds fun. Business major in Portugal. Live it up, King. Mr. Atrioc, if you think you could one time for the believers. I have no idea what you're talking about. Hey, Big A, wondering if you're still racist against Australians. No. Me? No. Bought it. Stupid fucking kangaroo fuckers. They bought it. I'm Australian. Fuck you. First time chatter. Wow, that's a bad first impression. I love Bluey. Big A, hypothetically, do you think the USA could sustain it if we went completely independent from the world economy? No. No, that would be stupid and bad. We don't. In 2024, bro, no. We're not going to go North Korea mode, yeah. Would you rather live in Canada, Australia? Oh, damn. Tough question. Would I rather live in Canada? I think probably Australia. I don't like cold weather. I know there's parts of Canada that are nice, but they all have winter, right? I think they all have winter. There's no like... I'm not a big winter guy. You know what I'm saying? I like, you know, I mean, LA's 72 and sunny year round. I live for that. And if I go to Australia, I can probably get, you know, somewhere similar. Weak Californian. True. Soy. Got fucking $13 green juice. I just like it. I like it. I hate being hot. Really? It's interesting. Maybe I'm Arizona pilled. I like the heat, bro. I mean, I don't like overwhelming heat like Arizona, but I think I hate when it's gray and cold. Dreary, bro. Dreary. Too dreary. I want the sun makes me energetic. Makes me attack the day. You're a plant? Bro's a plant? No, I'm not a plant. I enjoy a nice warm day. Like I went to the basketball court. It's a sunny day, but not that hot. I'm out there. I'm in a little bit of shade. I'm shooting the ball. It's fun. I feel good. You know, it gets me If it was cold or if I had to wear like a jacket, no, thank you. Bro's photosynthesizing on the court. I can't plant Atrioc. It's like so normal for me to say like, hey, I prefer the heat to the cold. And now it's this whole fucking thing. Shorts and a hoodie peak. Okay, but shorts and a hoodie is like warm, at least. It's not frigid. You know what's better than shorts and a hoodie? Shorts and a t-shirt. Shorts and a fucking t-shirt, dude. That's awesome. Shorts and a t-shirt. You're easy and breezy. It's awesome. Shorts and a t-shirt. I like long sleeves. Bro, I feel like if you're hoodie pilled, that basically is a roundabout way of saying you are a little antisocial. I know I'm reaching a little bit, but I don't think I am actually. I think if you want a hoodie that much, you want the barrier in some way. What happened to flannel pilled Big A? Too hot. It's too hot lately for flannel. Bro says he's ordering 4 turtlenecks. I actually don't have any turtlenecks. Maybe I have 1 turtleneck, maybe. But it's always been too hot. It's been too hot lately. Mr. Trocathonalan the second. The sext. If you have time to play basketball, you have time to get started on One Piece. Plant. I truly one day hope you get to experience the joy of One Piece, the best piece of media. And then you double giga-chatted your own message. This is terrible. This is one of the worst messages I've received. The opener, I hate. The assertion that if I have time to do something healthy and physical outside, I have time to watch One Piece. Then you just called me plant in all caps. And then you said One Piece is the best piece of media. The whole thing's bad. Top to bottom. Top to bottom, a disaster. Still wondering what your necklace is. Stop yapping and show me the goods, Daddy A. I'm typing you out and I won't show you my necklace now. If you asked normally, I absolutely would have been excited to tell you. I would have been excited to show it off. Now I'm uncomfortable and I don't want you, and I'm timing you out. I don't know. It's on your record, so if I see it again, I'm banning you. The collar on your... Dude, what is with these questions? What is with these fucking questions, bro? You guys are rabid today. You're wild animals. Did you read about this? Scientists discover a once-in-a-billion-year event. 2 life forms merging to create a new cell part. This is not a once-in-a-billion-years event. I saw this happen when I was young. Okay? And that could only have been... I guess it was a billion. I guess that was a billion years ago. Oh, wow. Time flies, bro. I thought that was 999 million, but that last million flew by. A nitroplast. Yep, that's what it was. Wow. Great to see that again. Great to see that again. Time flies when you're having fun. Amen, brother. Big A, new Star Wars trailer with Exqueeze Me. I saw this already. I was already linked this by 1 million people. Here's the part.
There is no escape.
What in the...
Excuse me.
Darth JarJar.
There it is. Been doing a little voice acting work on the side to make a little extra squeesh. Don't need the... Don't need to be made fun of for it. Everyone's got to make a job. Paco Niche, thank you for the 48 months. Hey, Atrioc, I just wanted to let you know I got a job as a marketing specialist using a lot of the info I learned from your streams. I went from making songs and puppets about marketing to actually doing marketing. So I just wanted to say thanks for that, Mr. Glarketer. It's a very sweet message. 48 months. Thank you very much. Thank you, Paconisha. It's a very nice thing. It makes me feel good. Warms me up in my heart. I'm not even going to charge you. I'm not even going to charge you a cut of your earnings. Normally I do, but I won't this time. You can keep all of your earnings for yourself. Just because you warmed my heart with that message. Atrioc, as an adult Lego fan wearing an antisocial social club hoodie, the Dark Side Millennium Falcon set is goated. This is your first chat message? Who asked? What? You're here for your first day and you're calling me Atrioc, jumping on the hoodie thing, and then we weren't even talking about Legos. The Dark Side Millennium Falcon set. I'm going to look it up.
Hey everyone, Ryan here, and today we have our first official looks at 3 new summer 2024 LEGO Star Wars sets. All 3 of these should be releasing on August 1st, both in America and worldwide, and we have pricing and part count information throughout the video. So we'll start with the set that we have the least amount of pictures and therefore information on, and that is the Droid Factory set. It leaked from
video on it,
and then Sig Griebling 1,579 pieces, and it costs $180. These Millennium Falcons have been getting incrementally more.
Oh my god, that's a Darth Jar Jar piece. Holy shit, it's got Darth Ray, Darth Jar Jar, and is that Darth Bay? I can't see. Then there's Jedi Vader, and they just made Darth Vader's outfit all white. Wait, what? What the hell does that mean? Why would the fucking hospital where he got rehabilitated after the lava burns have 2 sets of armor based on how evil he was? Why would they? Why that isn't. Why would he wear all glowing, gleaming white? It's canon, I fear. White Darth Vader. Darth Vader's white Jedi suit explained.
White suit Darth Vader. This is one of the most infamous panels in the history of Star Wars comics. But what's the story behind it? Surely it's more than just Vader deciding on a new makeover, right? Yes. To understand the story of White Suit Darth Vader, we must turn the clock back 20 years to 2003. The original trilogy has long since ended, with Return of the Jedi just celebrating its 20th anniversary. Attack of the Clones came out last year, and the anticipation is underway for Revenge of the Sith in 2005. Dark Horse Comics releases a 4-issue comic called Star Wars Infinities: Return of the Jedi. It's the 3rd Infinities run.
Bro, I remember this was when I lived in Germany as a kid. And we would go on base, on the military base, to pick up like American media. You know, if you wanted to buy DVDs or books that were in English or anything, you'd have to go on base, right? So I'm a kid. I don't know, I'm 11, 12, whatever. And we go on base to buy, I was going to buy Animorphs books. You know, I was a reader. I've always been a reader. I wanted to read Animorphs, okay? And we go to buy an Animorphs book, and instead I walk out and I bought a Star Wars comic. Because I think I had just watched episode 2 and I was kind of Star Wars pilled. And I was like, I'll buy the Star Wars comic. And I was reading it in the car. And I'm reading it, and I'm like just page turning it. You know, I'm enjoying it. And then I get home, and I can tell my mom's like a little like off. The whole car ride home, my mom's a little like off. And then I get home and she grabs the comic and she's like looking through it and she reads like Bantha Poodoo and she's like, what the hell is this? This is bad. And then her and my dad have like a little argument about it. And I think she's like, this is she thinks it's too nerdy. Like she doesn't want me to she doesn't want me to read comics, basically. And they end up throwing it away. They end up throwing the comic away, and I never get another one. By the way, I end up being the world's biggest nerd. It's not like it stopped me, but I do think that, like, I remember this moment where, like, it was like, because I probably wouldn't have read another one. I don't think I was I don't know. I flipped through it, but I read everything fast. But she was concerned that I would become comic book nerd. We'll ask her about this. Well, I forgot to mention, my mom is going to come visit me in California, in Libfornia. She's going to bring her gun because it could get dangerous. Okay. We're going to have to go through the fucking socialist wall at the edge of the state and the fucking riots and the endless fields of, lawless roaming homeless, and the liberals trying to fucking turn her gay. I don't know why I'm saying it like my mom is fucking Republican. My mom is voting Kamala Harris. Anyway, she's visiting in October. Just her. And she's going to come visit, and we're going to bring her on stream and do a stream like I did with my dad. And she said she doesn't want to do it, and I'm going to make her do it because I made my dad do it, and we had a good time. She's too nervous about it, but we're going to make her do it, and everyone's going to be nice, and it's going to be fun. And Dad Truck is voting RFK. He might be. My dad is, prior to Trump, was a lifelong Republican. And my dad is a true never Trumper. He thinks he would be. I mean, my dad, I feel like. My dad watched like The Apprentice since, like, he knows who Trump. He doesn't. I don't know. He just doesn't want him to be commander in chief. Are RFK voters voting? I don't know. If she was concerned about Star Wars, I wonder what she thinks of. I'm sorry, I can't read the rest of your message because you fucking floated away. Anyway, let's learn more about this lore here. You guys are throwing me off. I want to learn more about this lore.
With Infinity's A New Hope releasing in 2001 and Infinity's The Empire Strikes Back in 2002. The premise of each of these comic series was simple. They tell the stories of alternate histories to the original trilogy. Each comic tells the story of what would have happened if certain key events in their respective canon sources had played out differently.
Okay.
To sum it up, it was basically the same concept as Marvel's What If comics and Disney Plus series.
Right.
So let's talk about the events that led to a redeemed Anakin Skywalker donning a white Jedi.
Just why would it be white? It feels childish, It's like he could wear the same armor and be a good guy. It would just be the armor they had.
Return of the Jedi begins much the same as we know, up to the point of Princess Leia, disguised as the bounty hunter Boushh, arrives at
white,
Jabba's
it's
palace
iced out.
on Tatooine.
Okay, I don't actually want to watch a fucking. I just this is like a lot of setup.
Wearing a Jedi white version of Darth Vader's infamous suit. But where do you think the story goes from there? Does Palpatine seek out a new apprentice to battle Darth?
I don't know. Sorry to be like my mom, but it might be too much for me. If only she'd let me read that comic, I'd be interested. We're doing Nortel 2. Yes, we're watching Nortel 2 today. Absolutely. Tearful Grape, calm down, bro. Calm down. Bad news. I think you got the interview. You got it in the bag, bro. I believe in you. You're gonna know better than me. Big A's is right down your alley. Oh, what? There's a new. Wait, whoa. Jar Jar is the key to all of this. 600,000 views 9 days ago. It's all about Jar Jar. I can't fucking skip this.
The Star Wars experience can be summed up by a famous 6-word phrase. Where did it go so wrong? In this video, that's precisely what I intend to find out. If you had told someone at the end of the 20th century that Star Wars would be totally irrelevant...
I want to say something. This IMDb rating is obviously brought down by the culture war. I'll say it. I have now watched the full series of The Acolyte, and I have openly shit on Acolyte on stream. It's not a 3.4 out of 10, bro. It's fine. It's mid. It's classically mid, but it's not 3.4 out of 10. It's probably like a 6 because there's parts, like I almost wrote it off. Actually, I did write it off. I took a long break, and then I watched the very next one, and it kind of made sense on some of the things I thought were like super glaring mistakes. It kind of redeemed itself a little bit, and some parts are cool. Like I get what they were trying to do now, and at the beginning I didn't. After seeing the whole thing, I give it a solid mid. It's not even a bad use of your time if you had nothing else to do. There was one stinker, and that was episode, I think, 3, with the witches chanting. That's the only true stinker of the whole. The rest of them, really, they have good points and bad points. And I think I am the most fair reviewer here. I think people are fucking too culture war pilled on it.
relevant in pop culture within 25 years, they would have found the idea inconceivable. Such a scenario would require a level of negligence and mismanagement worthy of a federal investigation. But sure enough, to the absolute bemusement of lifelong fans such as myself, that's exactly what happened. Except, what happened to Star Wars wasn't the result of some insidious conspiracy to sabotage the franchise from the inside. That would have at least provided some sort of reasonable explanation. What's even harder to admit is that this disaster was precipitated by people who truly thought they were doing a good job. Just how things ended up this way is anyone's guess. For years, fans have been searching for answers. The downward spiral of Star Wars may be the most exhaustively discussed topic across all of
Jesus
YouTube.
Christ!
If you've spent any amount of time here, there's a decent chance you've encountered at least one of these videos. This seemingly unending ocean of grievances is all trying to accomplish the same thing. A task I've decided to call the Star Wars Autopsy, in which the disillusioned attempt to diagnose the precise point at which the system failed. For some fans, there's no justice in simply accepting.
This better mention that Andor is really good. That Rogue One was certainly above average. Like, there's been good stuff. If this treats it like it's like never anything good since the original trilogy, then I think it's kind of ridiculous. You mentioned the only two. Well, here's the thing. If it was just those two in the same amount of time, I'd be fine. I don't need a new fucking Star Wars property every 6 months. Okay? Every few years, every 5 years would be fine.
Defeat. They must comb through every
Mando
painstaking
season 1 was
detail of
fun.
these doomed films in order to salvage at least some sense of closure. It's clear that many out there find this line of work to be quite necessary. Critical reviews of the
He's also not mentioning the entire reason why this happens. It makes a lot of money. They get a lot of views. Look at the fucking... This is so annoying to me. This guy.
You know, we often talk these days about movies that...
This fucking guy, dude. This guy's a hack. A hack. This fucking guy, dude. Every video, you can guess what his review is before you open it. It is always pandering, and it was so fucking... The Acolyte episode 1, A Stunning and Brave Disaster. The Acolyte episode 2, A Show Made by Idiots. Bro, everyone... I watched the first two. I just wanted to see what the other fucking reviews. It's like, it's non-stop shitting on it, but he watches every fucking episode and does a full recap because every one of them gets millions of views. Do you understand? It's not because if he truly, you know what I'm saying? You watch the fucking season more closely than me. It's for money, bro. It's all for money. And then, bro, he had a fucking review. Dude, he reviewed The Boys Season 4. The Boys Season 4, you can obviously guess he's not going to like it because that's the fucking culture war thing. But there's definitely some criticisms to be had of Boys Season 4. I clicked to watch them. I find out early on he hasn't actually watched the season. He watched Acolyte nonstop. He hasn't actually watched The Boys Season 4. So even people on his side, read the fucking comments on this video, they're brutal. They're like, wait a minute, you didn't fucking watch it? It's brutal. It's brutal. So it's like, the only shows he's watching are the ones he says he fucking hates. The fucking Acolyte. It is awful. And they just print views, though. Because you just give people exactly the opinion they already wanted.
Franchise have never been more popular. It's not a stretch to say
That doesn't make The Acolyte good? No. The Acolyte is mid. But making a video called The Acolyte is mid. Like, some parts are nice, some parts are bad. It's whatever. Doesn't get you as many views as saying, this is the worst movie I've ever seen in my entire life. The fucking woke mind virus has truly poisoned Hollywood forever. Like, and doing that frame by frame on every episode for the entire season. It's exhausting.
say that a few folks have probably been able to pay off their mortgage
Now I'm
by
making money.
making them. But for every video you see complaining about Star Wars today, each can trace their lineage back to one common ancestor. A long time ago,
goats.
an old master posted what I considered to be the most influential film review in the history of the internet. Even if you haven't seen it, you've probably seen something that was inspired by it. In fact,
If you haven't seen it, you should go watch it. It's so funny. It's so good. It was so ahead of its time. It probably is. There's actually, usually video essays exaggerate. I think it probably is. In the history of the internet, in terms of film reviews, this got millions of views well before things would get millions of views. Everyone would share it in like nerd and film circles. People would talk about it. It executed it so well. It was so funny. Yeah, it's brilliant. It was a brilliant deconstruction of the Star Wars movies. What was it? It was a review of the Star Wars prequels that really broke down kind of why they're... I mean, listen, I like them, but I like them with nostalgia glasses on, for sure. You know, because I loved them as a kid, and they're fun, but... like, they break them down. Like, everyone says they're bad. Here's why. And they do it in a funny way, and it's great. I mean, it's like they're really good. They get a ton of views.
in fact, pretty much every long-winded video essay on modern YouTube owes their existence to this
Hot take, they aged well. I think they aged well, too, because I think the reason they kind of suck the most is the dialogue. George Lucas can't write dialogue for shit, and someone should have pushed back on him. The dialogue and all the prequels are really bad, but when you're a kid, you don't care about dialogue too much. But what's cool about the prequels is, unlike the new ones, 7, 8, and 9, they're so original, you know? There's just so much new, cool costumes and characters and pod racing and vehicles and droids and when you watch 7, 8, and 9, there's so much like nostalgia bait. There's so much look back. Here's the thing you remember. So the prequels were like very fresh, which was cool, which I liked a lot. And they added to the world instead of making it feel smaller. So I think there's a lot to like about them from that front, even though the dialogue really is horrendous.
ancient relic. And yet, in the countless years since, no other review has managed to surpass its powers of persuasion. If there was ever a video that can truly explain to us what went wrong with Star Wars, this is the one. And sure enough, in the midst of his magnum opus, the creator offers us the answer.
This is the moment when the Star Wars saga is now damaged totally beyond repair.
When I was younger, I didn't quite understand what he meant by this. Why would he choose this scene in particular? I used to think it had to be some elegant, sophisticated revelation that went over everyone's...
It's another memory I have. I'm sorry. I remember when Star Wars Episode 1 first came out on... Dude, this might have been VHS, but I think it was DVD. Star Wars Episode 1 DVD. And there was a day at school when you could bring in... Everyone in class could bring in DVDs, and we'd pick one, and we'd all watch it. And the teacher, I forget the teacher's name. I think it was Mr. Mangan. Anyway, I'm talking to the teacher, okay? And he's a Star Wars fan. He's an older guy. He's a Star Wars fan. He loves the originals. He's never seen the new ones. And and he hasn't seen Episode 1. He's just an old school Star Wars fan. He doesn't care anymore. He doesn't keep up with things. He didn't watch it. And we're talking, and like the class is like telling him, you have to watch Episode 1. It's new. It just came out. You have to watch it. And he's like, does someone have the DVD? We could bring it in for DVD day. And I'm like, I do. I'll bring it in. So on Friday, I bring it in. I bring in the DVD. This is the movie I've been watching like 10 times in a row. I love it. He takes it. He puts it in. He sits down and watches with us. He's watching it. We get to that part where Jar Jar is going, Misa, your humble servant, or whatever. He turns it off. Hand of God, this happened. The teacher turned it off. This is a little classroom of like 13 in Germany. He turned it off. We put on something else. It was unreal. I was so sad. I didn't even make a fuss. I didn't even freak out. I remember just feeling so sad that he didn't like it because I loved it.
Head. But eventually, as time went on, it all started to make sense. The solution is quite simple, really. I mean, just look who it is.
The GOAT!
War. War never changes.
I also think this scene in Episode 1 is fucking badass. I think it's badass. The big fucking grassy hills, all the droids rolling out. It's badass, dude. Although I will say, the beginning is a lot cooler than the end, where Jar Jar trips around and destroys thousands of droids. Just one.
This community has been at war for so long that it's hard to remember what we're fighting for. After a while, it all just feels so pointless. I mean, come on. Don't they know that my opinion is the correct one? What, you think you're better than me? How about I show up at your front door with a goddamn tank? Maybe to understand the nature of war, we need to study it at the source. This video is sponsored by War Thunder, the most...
That's fucked up, what you just did there.
waiting for. Hop on board now and feel the thunder!
That's fucked up.
Alright folks, we're taking a quick field trip to the movies, and today is our lucky day, because you wouldn't believe what just came out.
Is that an Enron sweater?
Movies, and
Bro's wearing an Enron sweater.
Today...
Oh, it's set in 2001? Oh, he said it in 2001. I get it. Oh, I get it. It's literally the year of...
is our lucky day, because you wouldn't...
Sorry, 1 second. I call my lawyer. Keep watching the video. No, really funny. I gotta send a quick text to my lawyer. Totally unrelated, but it's just I gotta get this out there. It's
believe what just came out in theaters.
See, it's gonna be broke. Income is exactly right. Very well done.
I may have gone too far in a few places.
Believe it or not, there are actually plenty of folks out there who hardly know anything about Star Wars. We like to refer to these people as lucky. To them, all this drama and bickering must be so confusing. How can people care so much about magical space wizards hitting each other with glow sticks? Well, the answer can be found in the story of Star Wars. Not the plot of the films, but the rise and fall of the franchise itself. The whole experience can essentially be described as a tragedy in 3 acts, each representing a distinct era of the Star Wars filmography. Our story begins with the original trilogy, which produced arguably the greatest success story in the history of Hollywood. These movies didn't just capture the hearts and minds of the masses, they were a remarkable achievement in the art of filmmaking. Their unique combination of music, storytelling, and visual effects were unmatched by any other blockbuster to that point. After setting box office records, they left behind a cultural milestone, influencing a generation of artists and filmmakers to rethink what was possible. On the opposite end of the spectrum, we have the most recent batch of movies.
Somehow Palpatine returned.
The sequel trilogy represents pretty much the complete antithesis of the originals. They can be described as nothing more than a pile of corporate slop completely devoid of the slightest morsel of imagination. This hideous abomination is an insult to the very idea of cinema, and has forever condemned the Star Wars brand to a dark oblivion from which it can never escape. The trauma inflicted by this sadistic filth often makes me wonder if we'd have been better off if Star Wars never existed. I see no subjectivity in this assessment, and consider anyone who legitimately enjoys this crime against humanity to be guilty of a tremendous personal shortcoming. Those who continue to defend such a travesty need to be locked away in a padded cell and studied for scientific purposes. Fortunately for today's video, we're not going to be talking about this trilogy. As far as we're concerned, this is simply how the story ends. What was once good is now evil. Somewhere along the way, this franchise was tragically tempted to the dark side. You can't say you didn't see it coming, because this is a story that Star Wars fans already know all too well. In between the originals and the sequels, you'll find the prequels, the part of the franchise where things get strange. While Disney ended up sinking Star Wars for good, many will say that the brand was already treading water long before the evil empire ever got their hands on it. The sequels may have sent the franchise into a nosedive, but the situation they inherited wasn't exactly ideal.
Ugh, I hate that scene.
Piece of junk!
Essentially, Disney dropped the ball.
This is actually one of my least favorite scenes in the whole. It's just so stupid. Like, they're on a middle of a fucking nowhere random planet, and they just met, and there's new characters, and something happens, and they look over there, and it's like, hey, what's that, old piece of junk? Oh, it's the Millennium Falcon that you remember? And they're like, pause the fucking screen so everyone can, in the audience, can clap like seals. It makes me feel dumb to watch. It makes me feel like my time and brain is not respected. It's the most, like, obvious pause for bat chest moment I've seen in a while.
Exactly ideal.
What a piece of junk!
Essentially, Disney dropped the ball and watched it shatter into a million pieces, but they weren't the first to fumble it. As it turns out, the trouble for Star Wars began a bit further upstream.
One of the dopest posters of all time. Absolute cinema. Jake Lloyd didn't really crush it as a child actor, but in this poster, fire. Goes dumb hard.
Even before the prequels existed, they were already on shaky ground. When the rumors of a new trilogy began swirling, many expected the story to pick up where it left off and feature the same iconic characters that fans already knew. However, it was eventually revealed that the upcoming films would serve as some kind of grand origin story for the existing saga. Immediately, this put the franchise in an awkward spot, where the chronology of the story now differed from the order of release. Even as a kid, I remember being annoyed by this, and continually having to waste time correcting people how Star Wars Episode 1 isn't the same as the first Star Wars. Needless to say, this confusing semantic dilemma was many people's first impressions.
I'll give you a hot take. It wasn't that confusing and didn't bother anyone. Certainly didn't stop the movies from making a ton of money. I feel like everyone got it. I really don't think it was that hard. My mom gets it. Everyone fucking gets it. Maybe it was like a tiny, tiny bit, but it was easily explainable.
Of the prequel trilogy. Eventually, though, the sheer hype of a new Star Wars would drown out any feelings of apprehension. In the winter of 1998, fans got their first glimpse of the saga's gallant return to the big screen, The Phantom Menace. Across the history of cinema, there had never been a more highly anticipated release. People were lining up for tickets a month before they went on sale.
Sheesh.
You even had fans paying full admission to random movies just so they could rewatch the trailer. The immense fanfare for this movie was a spectacle that will never again be replicated. And there's a good reason for that. Because it wasn't long before all the hype came crashing down. Immediately, people could sense that something was off about the Phantom Menace, but no one truly believed it until they saw him. This is JarJar Binks.
Misa called JarJar Binks.
He's some kind of freakish mix between a rabbit, a duck, and a salamander. He's about 6'5" and looks like he's gonna trip over himself at any moment. He speaks in broken English with a pretty thick accent, which makes it difficult to understand anything he's saying. This wouldn't be too big of a problem.
He could also hoop? Are you kidding me? He could swim better than Michael Phelps, and he could play on the fucking basketball team too? Mr. Steal Your Girl? My goat, Jar Jar?
Well, if he didn't enjoy talking so much.
It's a long hotel. Better dead here, not dead in
You thinking
The ability to speak does not make you intelligent.
You see, Jar Jar's presentation in this film is not exactly subtle. From the moment he's introduced, his presence is an almost non-stop assault to the senses. He steals your attention in the way an alarm clock does.
Time is 12 or 1 p.m.
The thing's just too disruptive to ignore, no matter how much you try. For some reason, the character has to almost constantly be doing or saying something goofy and nonsensical. His bizarre eccentricities are so obtrusive that they become overbearing. Surely this must be some one-off gag. I mean, really, there's no possible way that this walking distraction is gonna stick around for the entire movie, right? When I finally rewatched The Phantom Menace, I wasn't prepared for just how pervasive Jar Jar is within the overall product. Everyone more or less remembers the lowlights, but they failed to take into account the sheer totality of just how much the character is shoehorned into the plot. Before the film came out, audiences were primarily intrigued to see promising new characters.
The Darth Jar Jar Episode 2 twist would have been so peak. It would have been so peak. George Lucas, you coward. It would have been so peak, dude. It would have changed. It would have blown my mind as a kid.
Characters like Darth Maul and Mace Windu, in addition to returning fan favorites like Yoda and Palpatine. What nobody realized is that a talking cartoon would end up with more screen time than all of them combined. In fact,
that's fucking crazy. Yeah, they should have switched Jar Jar and Darth Maul, and the movie's fucking classic. Everybody loved Maul, dude. Maul was so badass. Every time Maul's on scenes, he was so fucking... that would have been an easy switch.
Cartoon would end up with more screen time than all of them combined. In fact, Jar Jar spends more time on screen than all but 4 characters in the entire film. He is practically omnipresent, traumatizing viewers as a ticking time bomb of annoyance. The worst part is, there is practically no justification for why Jar Jar needed to be included at all. His impact on the plot is virtually non-existent, and he seems to hang around the main cast purely out of circumstance. The movie tries to handwave this with some throwaway line about a life debt.
He owes me what you call a life debt.
But that doesn't explain why Jar Jar has to be physically alongside the heroes at all times. He offers them no real tactical advantage. In fact, he's more of a liability than anything. It's unclear whether anyone else even likes him, so why is he here? You're telling me that one of the most obnoxious characters in the history of cinema was unleashed into the Star Wars canon for seemingly no reason. The decision to do this is simply astounding. It would be the equivalent of putting a minion in Lord of the Rings. I mean, you've got to be kidding.
They did do that. Watch the fucking Hobbit sequels, dude. It's fucking embarrassing. It's basically they're all fucking minions and they're all CGI dancing around. It's such a piss on the grave of the original Lord of the Rings trilogy. They're so much worse in every way. It's crazy. It's crazy. The Lord of the Rings trilogy is so good, and the Hobbit trilogy makes me want to fucking claw my eyes out. I fucking hate them, dude. They're so bad. No, they're so much worse than Acolyte. The Hobbit river scene where they're all bouncing and bumbling down it is worse than Acolyte. Easy. I easily stand on that. It's because also with Acolyte, I'm not even comparing it to something. It's just like this. With Hobbit, I'm comparing it to the good Lord of the Rings. They have the same fucking actors in there. It's bad.
Me. Who is responsible for this? The prequel trilogy speaks of a prophecy centered around a powerful figure who tragically betrays everyone who loves him. This prophecy could just as easily describe the very man who imagined it. This is George Lucas, otherwise known as the father of Star Wars. He's the type of filmmaker you don't really see anymore, an auteur. Someone who exercises influence over every aspect of production. Directors like him were integral to the new Hollywood movement of the 60s and 70s, during which individual artists were granted.
We have some auteurs in chat for sure. Big, have you watched Clone Wars or Rebels? I have not. The best era of film, no cap.
Granted unprecedented control over studio budgets. The result of this era was a creative explosion of new ideas which pushed the boundaries of what was possible in cinema. It was a period of edgy and subversive counterculture, stories with dark themes, complex protagonists, and unresolved endings. These were the conditions that produced George Lucas, who was yet another ambitious young rebel at war with the evil empire. Sooner or later, he would embark on his most ambitious project yet. The production that followed was nothing short of disastrous. A near constant string of mishaps delayed the project by months. Lucas was evidently hard to work with, leading to frequent bickering with the cast and crew. Much of the talent quickly lost faith in the movie, expecting the whole thing to be one big failure. The last hope for the film was to be miraculously bailed out by the editing and special effects departments. But lo and behold, when the dust settled, George Lucas found himself at the helm of an accidental masterpiece.
In only 9 days, Star Wars has grossed more money than any movie in history.
People can see it a dozen times or 2 dozen times because it doesn't matter that you know the story. You still have the sound and light, the effects, the explosions. It's just a never-ending visual delight.
Star Wars was so successful that it ultimately brought about the end of the era which helped inspire it.
Dude, this poster's iconic, but it's so funny because it's like, this is not who Luke Skywalker is in the movies. Like they portray him as this fucking ripped Giga Chad. And like in the movies he's like this kind of meek whiner, you know? Yeah. And then they kind of changed Leia's face too. They changed, I don't know, it's funny. They just really played it up like a fucking He-Man kind of thing.
All of a sudden, the film industry had opened its eyes to the value of the blockbuster, which ushered in the beginning of Hollywood's franchise business model. George Lucas had single-handedly struck it rich by holding on to the film's merchandising rights, a decision that would end up being worth billions. In the span of about 10 years, the scrappy iconoclast had gone on to define the very institution he was fighting against. He had reached the absolute pinnacle of his domain, where he was hailed as a cinematic god. The brilliant luster of the Star Wars brand would completely overshadow whatever cracks lay in its foundation. Lucas's competence as a filmmaker was never really questioned. Everyone just assumed that whoever made the most money off Star Wars was exclusively responsible for its success. It simply made for a better story that one guy had created the whole thing. This mythology seemed to extend all the way to the top brass in Hollywood, as Lucas was granted near unlimited creative authority over the new trilogy. This approach differed greatly from the originals, which were largely a collaborative effort. In hindsight, the warning signs should have been clear, but no one wanted to listen. A new Star Wars film would have a tough act to follow for sure. But
yeah, I mean, like, if the prequel trilogy was all of George Lucas's ideas and someone else directing, would have been peak, bro. Would have been peak. Would have been so... He had so many good ideas, but the execution is what's bad about the prequels. They're kind of just... remake the prequel trilogy. They should, dude.
But I don't think anybody ever anticipated that it would be flat out bad.
There's no way it's going to be a disappointment.
Thumbs way down.
You didn't like it?
No, I think I deserve a public apology from George Lucas.
Unfortunately, I found that because it was so visual, a lot of the human element and the story got pushed out of the frame.
The disappointment of The Phantom Menace is a truly baffling turn of events. Everyone was left to wonder how you could possibly screw up such a sure thing. Fortunately, they wouldn't have to wonder for long. Perhaps the most interesting Star Wars film to come out of 1999 was not the one in theaters. The Phantom Menace DVD would feature the now infamous behind-the-scenes documentary. The footage within is almost haunting. It's as if you had a camera crew following around the creators of the Hindenburg. Just a few minutes in, George Lucas utters a line that he would never be allowed to live down.
Jar Jar is a key to all this. If we get Jar Jar working, because he's a funnier character.
It's not exactly clear what he meant by this, whether he's referring to the scene, the movie, or the franchise as a whole. Whatever the case, it's apparent that the rise of Jar Jar Binks was no accident. In fact, the character soaks up a great deal of focus in the documentary as well. As far as the crew were concerned, they were all bearing witness to history in the making. For as much of a joke Jar Jar would eventually become, it's often forgotten just how much of a technical marvel this character was. While today we're used to seeing fully CG characters integrated into live-action films, Jar Jar earned the distinction of being the very first of his kind. It was a crowning achievement for Industrial Light and Magic, the special effects company that George Lucas founded specifically for the Star Wars films. Contrary to what many now believe, the addition of Jar Jar was not some half-baked frivolous decision. It was a serious undertaking that required thousands of man-hours to pull off. The physical reference and voice of the character were provided by actor Ahmed Best. For each scene, he had to be fitted with a cumbersome costume that cost $100,000 to make. The resulting footage then had to be painstakingly animated and composited using 90s processing power. The computer graphics in The Phantom Menace are often ridiculed in hindsight, but it's easy to lose sight of just how impressive these effects were for the time. The artists at ILM had to tackle feats of engineering that had not yet been attempted. In my honest assessment, plenty of these visuals still hold up quite well. The problem was that this labor of love only existed in service of what most considered to be the film's single greatest flaw. However, it was clear that George Lucas didn't see things this way. One of the most revealing aspects of the documentary is just how enthusiastic he was about Jar Jar. If you didn't know any better, you'd think it was his favorite character in the whole franchise. Obviously, this was going to be a problem.
That's crazy.
While this character may have made sense in George's complex headcanon, it did not translate well to audiences. In fact, Jar Jar almost immediately became the most reviled figure in all of Star Wars. Their performance ended up offending people in more ways than one, with some interpreting the design as a racist caricature.
That character's just a tired stereotype.
The hatred for Jar Jar even spread to the entertainment industry itself, with numerous shows outright mocking the character.
And we, like everyone else in the world, hated the new Star Wars so much, and we were so excited.
And felt betrayed, really.
Yeah. The Jar Jar thing just made us so angry that we decided to dedicate a whole show to how stupid it was.
Misa needs a jack-off!
This was hardly some minor blemish that could be easily brushed aside. In the eyes of many, Star Wars had officially jumped the shark. And overnight, George Lucas had gone from a hallowed icon to a laughingstock. It is truly difficult to comprehend what he was thinking. There are many out there who attribute the character to some cynical money-making scheme, but I've never been satisfied with that explanation. Jar Jar was too much of a bizarre creation to be a part of a slick corporate agenda. If you ask me, the answer can be found in George's relationship with Star Wars itself. People tend to assume that since the franchise went on to such mainstream appeal that it was always designed to do so. However, looking back now, I no longer see that as the case. Upon closer inspection, Star Wars comes off far more as a deeply personal vision, which is especially apparent in the prequels. These films are littered with Lucas's own individual fascinations, from military history to auto racing to classic 1950s Americana. I think that when he finally unlocked total creative control over Star Wars, nothing was stopping him from treating it as his own private wonderland of amusement. It's no secret that the franchise took heavy inspiration from plenty of other cinematic greats that came before it. Throughout his rise to prominence, Lucas always maintained an appreciation for the history of show business. The concept for Jar Jar was designed as an homage to vaudeville and Hollywood's silent era, whose works were defined by slapstick comedy. In his thought process, it must have been no different than drawing influence from a Western or a samurai film. To him, Star Wars was more or less a celebration of film itself, a modern epic that transcended genre. I believe this had been the case ever since the originals, the only difference being that back then, he had more voices in the room to balance out his ideas. By the time The Phantom Menace went into production, there was no one left around him to question his authority. It might seem baffling how something like Jar Jar made it all the way to the big screen without anyone involved pointing out how bad of an idea it was.
Yeah.
The truth is that many crew members probably thought this, but they didn't want to blow their one opportunity to work on the next Star Wars. In other words, everyone was too afraid to tell the Emperor that he was naked. And hey, you know what they say about fear.
Fear leads to anger. Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering.
The Star Wars films deal heavily in the theme of faith, placing your trust in some invisible force that's supposed to guide you to something greater. In my honest assessment, the beginning of the end for the franchise can be defined at the moment the audience lost faith in its creator. The Jar Jar experiment marked the point that George Lucas's imagination went too far. The addition of the character introduced a source of friction between Lucas and the fans that would never be reconciled. Many started to believe that the franchise had been mishandled to the point that his interpretation of it no longer mattered. The very idea of this really seemed to bother Lucas, who saw himself as the supreme arbiter of his creation. He believed so strongly in this principle that he once lobbied Congress for legislation forbidding studios from altering completed films. While this may seem a bit hypocritical considering the numerous revisions he would eventually make to the original trilogy, the underlying philosophy remains the same. When it comes to Star Wars, King George has the final say. As far as anyone else is concerned, his word shall be treated as gospel. But what happens when the rest of the congregation decides that they no longer agree with the Holy Scripture? Well, you end up with a bunch of separatists.
This is getting out of hand.
Star Wars has always attracted nerds. This was very much the case in 1999, except back then, being a nerd wasn't the endearing personality quirk that we see it as today. This was a time when being openly nerdy was a brutal experience that would condemn you to a lifetime of torment and bullying. Your only refuge would be...
Dude, whenever I would move schools, because we moved every 2 years for military, I would pretend I didn't like video games. I would pretend I would tell everyone that I would meet that I didn't like any of that shit. I would always lie. I would keep it at home. And now people just they're so open with it. The people just get on Discord with their friends from school and play games. That's crazy.
To immerse yourself in escapist geek culture with all the other rejects who didn't fit into the rest of society. Back then, something like Star Wars was all you had. And no matter how many people told you it was dumb and lame and childish, you stuck with it, because it added value to your life in a way that nothing else could. Now imagine that all of a sudden, the newest installment of your favorite franchise adds a character that makes the whole thing look dumb and lame and childish, and then to have the guy responsible for it all essentially tell you to grow up for not liking it.
Which the movies are for children, but they don't want to admit that.
You'd probably have to start asking yourself some serious questions. Jar Jar Binks was far from the only problem with The Phantom Menace, but he did make for the perfect scapegoat. The manifestation of grief for a generation who lost a meaningful part of themselves. It wasn't long before the feelings of betrayal boiled over into something truly foul. At last, it was time for the apprentice to confront the master. These days, it's difficult to convey the extent to which people hated Jar Jar. This all took place in the early...
What the fuck is that?
Convey the extent...
Greetings, hate mongers. I love Star Wars. I love Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. I had one big problem. His name is Jar Jar Binks. Every second in that movie, I wish someone would come along and just kill him. If you haven't seen the movie, you might be thinking he's not that bad. If you have seen the movie, you know he is. Still not convinced he's truly evil. He actually says, "Excuse me," and says how rude 3 times. 3, that's absurd. Who would you rather have sex with? Darth Vader and Ewok Emperor Palpatine, C-3PO Boss Nass, Sarlacc Pit. C-3PO probably.
To which people hated Jar Jar. This all took place in the early days of the internet, before everyone so freely shared their opinions with the rest of the world. There's not much of a paper trail documenting just how bitter people were about it. And while we can no longer witness the true hostility of the moment, we can observe the effects it left behind. Sometime in the year 2000, a mysterious tape began making its way around Hollywood. An unknown editor had produced an alternate cut of The Phantom Menace which sought to correct the mistakes of the official release. The alteration, known as the Phantom Edit, ended up removing about 18 minutes of footage from the original, much of which involved what the creator referred to as Jar Jar antics. The tape would eventually circulate to plenty of influential people in the industry, with many considering it to be an improvement. In a rather humiliating turn of events, Lucas's grand vision had been bested by a bootleg copy. The spirit of removing Jar Jar seemed to carry over to the rest of the trilogy. After being inescapable in The Phantom Menace, his role would be diminished to almost nothing in the next 2 installments. It's hard to say whether the studio or Lucas himself decided to pull the plug, but the experiment had clearly failed. To add insult to injury, the films seemed to be better received the less Jar Jar was in them. While it eventually improved down the stretch, the prequel trilogy would mostly be seen as a disappointment. It had its moments here and there, but it could never really overcome the stigma of that first movie. This effect was evident in the steep drop-off in revenue between Episode 1 and 2. There must have undoubtedly been a significant chunk of the audience who saw Jar Jar and decided not to return for what came next. It had become patently obvious to everyone involved that the franchise needed to move on without him. And so, over the next few years, the character gradually disappeared from merchandise and promotional material for the brand. He would be noticeably omitted from any cover art relating to subsequent re-releases of The Phantom Menace. He was almost entirely excluded from the deluge.
They did my boy dirty, dude. He came out, he made us laugh, he made us cry. And now they cut it from history? Squeeze yourself.
Of 2000 Star Wars spin-off media as well, only really appearing in the LEGO Star Wars games and the 2008 Clone Wars series, a performance that is rarely ever discussed. By most accounts, Jar Jar's presentation was far more tolerable here, as he unsurprisingly felt more at home in a cartoon. Ahmed Best even returned to reprise his role, although at this point, the job was far from smooth sailing. Midway through the first season, Best would abruptly leave the production. In the years since, the actor has opened up about his personal struggles with being attached to such a hated character. Decades before the modern horror stories of toxic behavior from the Star Wars audience
led to abuse near death?
It's before the modern horror stories of toxic behavior from the Star Wars audience. Best would be the first to experience the truly vicious side of the fan.
Dude, that's funny. The kid hated it too. Anakin, Jake Lloyd. He fucking hated it. He talks about how he wished he never did it. And That's crazy. That's crazy. The fans need to relax, dude.
Fandom. The relentless backlash ended up taking a serious toll on his mental health. At times, he even found himself losing the will to live. It is profoundly tragic how a character designed to entertain the world was ultimately responsible for such an ugly situation. Eventually, though, Best was able to set aside his personal turmoil and return to the job. In his absence, the role of Jar Jar was given to an unknown figure by the name of B.J. Hughes. Years later, this was revealed to be a pseudonym for a longtime voice actor Phil LaMarr. After seeing what happened to his predecessor, it's understandable why he didn't want his name associated with the character. This seemed to mark the point at which Jar Jar's reputation hit rock bottom.
He didn't want his real name on Jar Jar.
He had become so notorious that actors were afraid to play him. It looked as though this tortured soul had finally reached the end of the line, locked away in the chest with all the other misfit toys. On March 7, 2014, Jar Jar Binks was featured on the Clone Wars for the last time. This would be his final on-screen appearance in any major Star Wars media. For all intents and purposes, the story should have ended here. But what if there was just a bit more to that story? For as insufferable Jar Jar was in Episode 1, it never really made sense how much of an afterthought he was in those later films. The amount of resources Lucasfilm invested in the character seemed to suggest that they had far bigger plans for him. Ultimately, the tuned-down version of Jar Jar we got in Episode 2 and 3 came off less like a logical continuation of the story, and more like the studio caving to public pressure.
Right.
Which raises the question of whether there was another side to Jar Jar that we never got to see.
Darth Jar Jar?
In 2010, the Adult Swim series Robot Chicken published a sketch depicting Jar Jar as a secret, all-powerful villain. Now, at face value, this was obviously designed to be a comically absurd premise, but something about it really got the audience thinking. After years of religiously studying the source material, some fans began to notice a few discrepancies in how exactly Jar Jar behaves. Throughout The Phantom Menace, he can be observed performing several odd motions and gestures that feel out of character. These events are very subtle, and unless you're specifically searching for them, you'd have a hard time noticing that anything is off at all. Eventually, people began to piece together what would go on to become the most brazen hypothesis in all of Star Wars.
I love it.
The Darth Jar Jar theory is a proposition that would be written off as totally insane if it wasn't so compelling. It stipulates that Jar Jar is not the bumbling fool that we think he is, and that the true nature of the character is precisely the opposite. According to
Can you imagine?
And that the true nature of the character.
Can you fucking imagine if Episode 3 like right after Luke is born, this Jar Jar emerges, cuts Padme's head off. Squeeze me. Just fucking. Oh, man. It would be fucking peak, dude. What a twist.
Is precisely the opposite. According to the theory, Jar Jar is a hidden Sith Lord who only acts incompetent to deceive and manipulate others, suggesting that his overwhelming presence in The Phantom Menace was not incidental, but premeditated. If you assume this is true, then it completely changes the way you look at the prequels. It takes the biggest flaw of the trilogy and transforms it into something brilliant. This theory would quickly become a fan favorite, as it provides a satisfying explanation for Jar Jar's most frustrating issues. For instance, the character's unexpected skill in combat is far more plausible, rather than coming off as dumb luck. It also justifies why exactly he's constantly meddling with the affairs of the heroes. He'd have to position himself so he could directly influence key outcomes in the plot. Essentially, Jar Jar would have been set up as a mirror image of Yoda, another character who was...
I'm sorry, Jar Jar tells Anakin that the 13-year-old queen is pretty hot. She's a different species and she's underage. That I don't even remember that line. That's real? We should cancel him. We should cancel Jar Jar. I think we should do it, dude. Check his old tweets.
Essentially, Jar Jar would have been set up as a mirror image of Yoda, another character who was previously introduced as annoying and eccentric, only to later reveal himself as a powerful master. However, Jar Jar's epic reveal never ended up happening, as whatever plans were in store for him would be swiftly abandoned. For as interesting as Darth Jar Jar could have been, it's hard not to question whether it's all just wishful thinking. Aside from a few cryptic tweets by Ahmed Best, there's never been any official confirmation on the matter. Of course, Star Wars fans have a habit of excusing sloppy filmmaking by retroactively applying a bunch of made-up lore, but even if this theory was true, there's no guarantee that it would have magically saved the prequel trilogy as many like to believe. While it's fun to fantasize...
Yeah, I mean, it could have made it work. I think episode 3 is pretty good, and had they just forced a ton more Jar Jar into 2 and 3... I mean, what if he was still super goofy but a bad guy, and it just like it's incredibly grating and annoying? Okie day.
About an alternate timeline where Jar Jar actually won over audiences with the ultimate plot twist. At the end of the day, those aren't the films we got. There comes a moment when every Star Wars fan has to face the fact that the theatrical product has not been good for a very long time. For all the hype and brand worship that's been poured into this franchise over the last quarter century, the audience has come out of it with pretty much nothing to show for it. You can conjure up whatever theory or lore or fan fiction you want to make sense of it all, but you can't hide the sheer dismay of watching a cultural titan slowly rot into nothingness. Perhaps the most painful part for all of us to admit is that Jar Jar was nothing compared to the horrors that lay ahead. Somewhere on YouTube, there's an interview with George Lucas from the year 1994, when he started writing the script for The Phantom Menace. On this video, several commenters point out an observation that is equal parts insightful and tragic. They mention how joyful and enthusiastic Lucas was before the prequels, and how his demeanor had changed by the time the trilogy ended. Modern interviews of George come off as much more bitter and jaded, as if somewhere along the way, a twinkling light in his soul had been extinguished. Given the position he was in, it would have been so easy to weasel out of the burden of failure for what he just created. He could have thrown others under the bus or groveled at the feet of the fans. There was nothing stopping him from pumping out a new trilogy of pandering junk in a vain attempt to try to win everyone back. But ultimately, when the chips were down, George Lucas stood by his product. It cost him dearly. His name and reputation were dragged through the mud, and the years of ridicule clearly took their toll on him. The man who had once held the heartbeat of pop culture in the palm of his hands now had to grapple with a world who no longer understood his vision. There are many out there who think that George was only ever in it for the money.
I was just about to say this. I was like, yeah, he walked away with billions of dollars, so I don't feel too terrible for him. Like, just literal billions of fucking merchandise money and then selling the franchise for $4 billion.
Money, and point to what happened next as evidence of that assertion. However, I find it hard to believe that his true motivations were so shallow. To me, the ultimate fate of Star Wars came down to something far more personal. When I look at George Lucas, I don't see the cantankerous old tyrant that many like to paint him as. I see an artist who was stripped of his passion, someone who could no longer find any sort of joy in his life's work. Star Wars had become such a constant source of negativity that it left him with no reason to continue. I think that deep down, George never stopped being that scrappy iconoclast. He spent his whole career rebelling against everything that stood in front of him. Eventually, he ran out of things to defy, so he chose instead to defy us.
What if someone else beside you came to you and said, I want to make episode 7? Could you see that happening?
No.
Yikes.
October 30th, 2012 is otherwise known as the darkest day in Star Wars history, when Lucas sold the franchise to Disney. The worst part about it was that when it happened, no one could sense that anything was wrong at all. If I recall correctly, most people welcomed the news with open arms. No one really stopped to think about what it represented. How the guy who for so many years fought tooth and nail for the exclusive right to shape the destiny of his creation had decided to just let it go. Everyone was so eager to say good riddance. They'd written him off as a greedy, out-of-touch business mogul. But once Disney took over, it wasn't long before we learned the true
Now
meaning
we'll show you
of
the
greed.
real greed.
On that fateful day, George Lucas finally accepted his one true pathway to redemption, reminding the rest of the world why he still mattered. If Star Wars has taught us anything, it's that there's always a greater evil. Make no mistake about it, George may have walked away with the money, but we were the ones who sold our soul. I understand that it sounds a little rich to blame the fans for this whole mess. I mean, after all, who could have guessed that the illustrious Disney would follow up their $4 billion purchase with such a pathetic effort? Was it unreasonable for us to assume that they would go into it with any plan whatsoever? Watching it all unfold was like witnessing the inconceivable. Yet part of me suspects that things were always meant to turn out this way. Star Wars never really felt right without Lucas in charge. Stuff like Jar Jar and the prequels certainly had their problems and deserved to be criticized, but you have to wonder that maybe if we all weren't so hard on them, we could have saved ourselves from this miserable fate. Disney's version of Star Wars has more problems than you can possibly count. But if I had to identify the single biggest one, it comes down to a lack of imagination.
Yeah!
This is without a doubt where George's absence is most apparent. While he was never that skilled at the
I knew you were going to say pre-watch. I feel like he pre-watched my stream and went back in time and made this video. This might take forever, dude. This might take for fucking ever. I so agree. They're just so dull because they're so nostalgia bait. It like instantly bores me whenever I'm told, hey, it's the Millennium Falcon, look again.
little things like dialogue and camera work. Lucas always excelled at the big ideas. This was ultimately the secret ingredient that made Star Wars work, something that Disney never came close to replicating. And for all the suits out there scratching their heads at how this embarrassing clown show of vacuous pandering failed to impress, I think it's worth revisiting how exactly Star Wars became popular in the first place. The franchise has been inept for so long that many now attribute its initial success to one big fluke. However, the sheer impact that those original films had on people cannot be dismissed. The outpouring of love and reverence they evoked was surely no accident. This response was pure and spontaneous, unencumbered by any delusions of nostalgia or fandom. It was a sensation experienced by ordinary people no different from you and I, one that was reproduced across the globe, regardless of language or nationality. The success of these movies transcended any sort of technical expertise in filmmaking. They required the steady hand of a true visionary, someone who could tap into the universal truths of the human condition. Star Wars was not some arbitrary parade of heroes, villains, and special effects. It had profound things to say about the nature of destiny, spirituality, and salvation. Say what you want about old George, but no one else could have made Star Wars. He may have had his limitations as a director, but you can never convince me that he didn't care, which sadly cannot be said about the people currently in charge. The greatest irony with this whole story is that Lucas's worst idea had more effort and thought put into it than anything the Disney sequels had to offer. Strangely enough, the new trilogy failed precisely because they were too afraid of making anything like Jar Jar. He represents something that the business stiffs of the world will never understand.
Jar Jar didn't show up, did he? In 7, 8, and 9 ever? Not even once. I don't think so. I guess they could have made a thing about how old he was or something. That's the problem. That was the real problem. That's what I actually love the nostalgia bait. I just didn't get any Jar Jar, so I was pissed off. I was like, oh, Millennium Falcon, awesome. Oh, old Luke, awesome. Any second now we're going to see Squeeze Me. And Jar Jar's going to come out, probably with Boss Nass too, and Boss Nass is going to go, and I was going to fucking buy $400,000 worth of merch.
Understand that if you want to create a truly memorable experience, you gotta roll the dice. Failures are bound to happen. Every great artist runs into them eventually. But you can never make great art if you refuse to try anything different. There is no industry think tank in the world that could have created Jar Jar. He would have immediately been rejected for being too risky, too unmarketable, and too weird. But what can I say? You gotta be weird to make something special.
The movie business is exactly like professional gambling, except you hire the gambler. Usually some crazy kid with long hair who's like, I don't get this guy at all. You give him $100 million, and you say, go to the tables, and you come back with $500 million. Now, if you do anything that's not a sequel or not a TV series, they won't do it. And it really shows an enormous lack of imagination and fear of creativity. So you gotta remember, Star Wars came from nowhere. There was nothing like it.
I think Kurosawa would disagree with you. But yeah, in America for sure.
Just a few months ago, George Lucas was invited to speak at the Cannes Film Festival. He received a standing ovation. It's been a long and winding road to get here, but at the end of it all, it's nice to see the old master come out on top. I wish I could say the same for the franchise he left behind. It hurts my soul to see what's become of it. The truth is that I don't really consider myself a Star Wars fan anymore. At this point, there's really nothing left to love. What we're seeing now are the last smoldering embers of a great blaze that was lit long ago. And although we can no longer experience the warmth, we can at least appreciate the man who provided that original spark. The modern age of the internet has not been kind to Star Wars, but remarkably, it has been much kinder to Jar Jar Binks. The generation of children that Jar Jar was designed to appeal to has since grown up, and the hostility toward the character has gradually faded away. With each passing year, there seems to be a growing number of people who find him to be, dare I say, entertaining. After a decade plus of getting to know the minions, it's safe to say that Jar Jar no longer feels so outrageous. In a turn of events that would have seemed impossible 25 years ago, the most reviled character in Star Wars history is now fondly remembered as a sign of better times. The character has become popular enough that he's being brought back from the brink of extinction. Later this year, we will witness the first official appearance of Darth Jar Jar.
These are going to hurt you, Darth Jar.
Okay, maybe it wouldn't have been peak. maybe it would have been terrible. Holy shit, maybe it would have been fucking horrendous. Can go to my grave in peace. Chills, you got chills from that?
Jar! With Ahmed Best returning once again to play the version of the character that never was. This time around, he can finally take pride in knowing that the audience will actually be happy to see him for once.
True.
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
It took a new generation and the death of a franchise, but George Lucas ended up...
Okay, I'm going to give a hot take. All this is kind of bullshit. The second they make one good film and eventually they'll hit it, everyone's back in. You know what I'm saying? They're just going to keep turning them out and eventually they'll make a good one and then everyone's back in. And all this won't happen? It'll happen, bro. They'll get there. They have 3 coming up. They have fucking 30 coming up. They won't stop, dude. They won't stop. They will keep sending their soldiers to die until they breach the wall, dude. They'll get one. Rogue One? Rogue One is interesting. I think Rogue One is good, but Rogue One isn't great. And most importantly, Rogue One is so complete because everyone dies in it. Everyone dies in it. So you can't leave Rogue One excited for the next one. It doesn't, spoiler by the way, it doesn't, the way the first Star Wars would excite you and say, I want to go to more of this universe and these characters. Rogue One is a total. You don't get any more of Jyn Erso if you get attached to her, or you know what I'm saying? Everyone in that thing is a one time. So, and same thing with all these, like, you know, some people like Solo. I didn't like Solo that much, but even if you do like Solo, it everything about it just leads back into the original. It's just fodder, extra. If they make an entirely new movie set in a different time with good characters, the second they land on good characters, people care about, it's all back. People love watching fucking lightsabers, and you know what I'm saying? Is that even Star Wars? Yeah, of course, dude. Knights of the Republic. Knights of the Republic is a great story, great characters. People loved it. People love Knights of the Republic. Fucking peak game. And it's got zero crossover. Nobody even close. Thousands of years apart. But it's got lightsabers. It's got good characters. People liked it. That's fucking peak Star Wars. The Rock will play Darth Malgus. Timothy Chalamet will play Revan. Let me cook. How about you let someone else cook for a bit, huh? Chris Pratt will play Darth Mario. A Nintendo branded crossover. Okay? Now we're talking peak. RBJ, who's that? As Revan? How about RBG? We get the fucking corpse of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. To play, that would be something. That would be something. A CGI reanimation. A CGI reanimation of Ruth Bader Ginsburg. That would be quite political. Ruth Vader Ginsburg? Holy peak! Holy peak, dude! Wait! Oh my God, I'm sold! Luke, I am your mother. Holy shit. Anya Taylor-Joy as female Jar Jar. Brilliant. Just brilliant. Jar Jar's more annoying sister. 40 minutes of screen time. Wait, we can make some real money here. We can make some real money. Ruth Conda forever. May the Ruth Conda be with you would be like the iconic line. You know what I'm saying? And that way you get Disney crossover as well. You know what I'm saying? It brings you back to bring in The Rock and Kevin Hart. Okay. The Rock as C-3PO, Kevin Hart as R2-D2. Peak. I did it. I just fucking made the movie of the summer. Holy shit. Holy shit, dude. Now we're printing cash.
Ended up being right about Jar Jar all along.
Tupac for the soundtrack? Yeah, but entirely new AI-generated slop Tupac songs. The whole album... The whole movie is filled with 16 original AI-generated Tupac songs, written and performed by Drake with the voice, with the Tupac AI voice. It's a musical. It's a Hamilton-style subversive rap musical. Baba, you're in my chat taking notes right now. Kathleen Kennedy in my chat fucking taking notes. This is fucking brilliant. This is brilliant. This is the death of art.
He may not have been the best character.
Wait, Trump is streaming on Twitch? What? Is that a random message of joke or is that real? Is Trump streaming on Twitch? We gotta watch. Raid? You should raid me first. You should raid me first. He did a stream with Aiden Ross. I know he's talking about that. We're talking about that, but I mean, he's not live. Oh, it's live at the rally. Okay. Less viewers than you. I'm mogging Trump, and I have been, dude. I have been, and I'll continue to.
Character. In fact, you'd have a hard time finding a single thing about him that's remotely good. He's not.
Hey, thanks for the gifties. Whoa, 20 gifties from Doug Official. Thank you very much. Did you have a message? You said, it's me, Doug. I forgot to sub, my bad. You're not Doug. Doug has the... Doug's name is Doug. You're not Doug. Okay, you know why I know you're not Doug? Is because when I scroll back in your chat history, even though you only have 4 messages, I can find one from 6 days ago where you said, cheer 500. Hey, Atrioc, how would you solve the crisis in Venezuela? I don't think Doug would ask me that. I've spoken to Doug in between. He doesn't bring that up.
Not well designed or well written. He doesn't say anything cool or sensible. He's not charming, he's not elegant, he's not even really that necessary. But he is the key to all of this.
Facts. That's pretty good. I like that. I like that one. You know, it's a combination of things other video essays have said, but I think he put it in a good way. I love JarJar Binks. I'll just say it. Okay? I'll just say it. He's the GOAT. He's peak. Just watched Atrioc stream for the first time. Absolutely incredible. Let me tell you, this guy is the glizz god, no question. The energy, the content, everything was you. Oh, this is your Trump. People tell me all the time, you got the best glizzies. But Atrioc, nah, it's all right. It's... Thanks for the 5 gifted medium hollow. Well, that was a fantastic video essay. However, now it's... Oh, wait. Oh, God. Link has sent it. He sent We're Hitman, guys. We'll watch one. You'll get to get one sneak preview.
We're Hitman, guys. Of course we have to try the new limited time elusive target.
In front of an IKEA. In a cowboy hat. Peak! The peak of fucking TikTok! All right, we got to put these together. I'm not going to leak anymore. That's gold. Oh my God, he sent me so many good ones. These are perfect. Okay. Where did Pete come from? I invented it. It comes from this stream. If you want to know the future of slang, you hang out in Atrioc's chat, okay? Everyone will be saying in 3 months. We got it here. Started right here.